Craig Rennie has been confirmed as one of your candidates for Wellington Bays. What happens to Barbara Edmonds?
Barbara Edmonds is going to be the Minister of Finance in our next government. Craig brings a huge range of economic skills. He'll be a really valuable member of the team, but of course he'll be starting new. He'll be learning the ropes as a new Member of Parliament, and of course we want him to win that seat and get himself well established in that seat.
What roles are you thinking for him? Because I mean, he does bring with him a whole lot of a wealth of knowledge and experience.
He does, and he'll be a very valuable member of the team, but we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. We've got to get out, work hard and win the election. No one's divvying up ministerial roles at this point, because we've got to get out there and win as many votes as we can.
Will he have a role outside of Parliament in the lead up to the election?
Craig is a member of the Labour Party Policy Council. He's a very active contributor to our policy debates. I'm sure he'll continue to do that.
Will he be an associate finance spokesperson?
No, he won't. None of our non-MP candidates will have spokesperson roles leading up to the election. We've never done that before.
What level of inquiry do you think is warranted into the Tom Phillips case? Should it be Royal Commission?
It's a difficult one. I think that they do need to make sure it's independent, that it's thorough, and that the public can have confidence in the inquiry's findings, albeit recognising that there will be some parts of the findings that may not be able to be made public. So however they structure it, they need to make sure that the public have confidence in it, even if they're not told all of the details, because that may not be appropriate to share.
Does it need to look at the decisions of the family court to make sure it's not at fault?
I think there is a need to look at all the actions of all the government agencies, family court, police, Oranga Tamariki. Every agency that was involved should be scrutinised. I think in doing so, they need to be very careful to protect the privacy of the children involved.
How big is National's KiwiSaver plan in the grand scheme of things? Will it make a difference, or is it just tinkering on the edges?
Increased retirement savings through KiwiSaver will be a good thing. KiwiSaver is a great scheme. It was introduced by Labour. We're very, very proud of it. But I am concerned the National Party haven't done their homework here. They haven't worked out a transition plan. They haven't worked out how to support people on low incomes. And they are the government right now. So they could have worked through all of these details already, is in government, and actually be taking positive, proactive action. The fact that they're not doing that suggests that this is just a panicked, we need to announce something, come up with something on the hoof, rather than a considered policy.
If National did go ahead with this, would Labour keep them?
We want to see higher rates of retirement savings, but the things that I set out yesterday are the things that we want to see addressed. So we want to see a plan to support people on low incomes. We need to see a plan to support those who are not in the workforce so that they don't end up with being disadvantaged in retirement. We do need to make sure that whatever we're doing is sustainable. And the National Party haven't really set out the details yet of how they're going to achieve those things.
What would your details be? Would you match National's thresholds?
I will announce our own KiwiSaver policy in due course. We're very, very supportive of KiwiSaver. Labour introduced KiwiSaver. National's cut it twice now, and suddenly in this latest Road to Damascus conversion, they're now suggesting that KiwiSaver is a very, very valuable tool. Well, they've made two major cuts to it. They cut the government contributions in half under the Key English government. They then cut them in half again under the Luxon-Willis government. I'm pleased that they've now recognised the value of KiwiSaver, but cutting government contributions really sent the opposite signal.
When will you make your announcement?
We've got a lot of policy work underway. KiwiSaver is one of the areas that we've been looking at because a greater level of retirement savings will be good for New Zealand.
This side of Christmas or early next year?
It'll be next year. And I'm certainly not opposed to the level of contribution that they're talking about. 12% is in line with Australia. They did that over a period of a number of years, well signalled in advance, and I think New Zealand will need to take a similar approach. But it will also need to be accompanied by support for people on low incomes, those not in the workforce, and some protections as well to make sure that employers can't treat increased KiwiSaver contributions as part of your pay and therefore reduce your take-home pay as a result.
Just what do you make of the warranty stuff today announced by Chris Peck?
We're broadly supportive of the work that the government have been doing in this space to make it easier, cheaper to build homes, as long as there's adequate consumer protection in place. We don't want people to end up in another leaky homes debacle. So the idea that there should be some compulsory indemnity is probably a good step in the right direction.
Are consumers paying twice here though? They pay the builder, then they pay the builder again, the master builder or whoever, for these warranties. Shouldn't that be captured in the first price that they pay?
Well, that's one of the things that we'd want to look at, is to make sure that consumers are getting good value for money and that they're getting a good deal. But consumers certainly deserve to be protected so that they don't end up 5 years down the track with a leaky house or a house that's defective, and suddenly the builder that built it's disappeared and there's no recourse for them.
Just on your capital gains tax policy, based on recent polling, 2/3 of voters say that they want it to apply to real gains, and that number is even higher amongst Labour voters. So they're indicating that they don't like this element of the policy. Do you think you've made the right move to not account for inflation?
I haven't seen the question that David Farrar asked, and I'd want to see that before commenting on the results of that poll, because depending on how you ask the question will very much depend on the nature of the answers that you get. The National Party have been scaremongering about Labour's capital gains tax, telling outright lies about it. It won't apply to the family home, won't apply to farms, won't apply to KiwiSaver, won't apply to businesses, and it also won't apply retrospectively. And I think it's really important that before we ask anyone their opinion on it, that they get all of the facts. So if those facts weren't set out in the question, then any results are meaningless.
Would you consider accounting for inflation?
It's not something that we have considered. What we're doing, though, is only making it prospective, so it will only apply to gains made in the future, not any gains that have already been made.
And so, you kind of already answered this, but what do you make of that polling overall, just on the capital gains tax so far?
The support, we've seen strong levels of support from the New Zealand public around the concept of a capital gains tax. Our capital gains tax is simple and targeted, and that it only applies to residential property excluding the family home and commercial property. It doesn't apply to businesses, to KiwiSaver, to farms, and so on. And I think that's really important it is important to make that distinction. And much of the work that the National Party and their allies have been doing, they've been deliberately trying to muddy the waters there.
How much of that policy did Craig Rennie write?
He wasn't. I don't think he was involved in the detail of the capital gains tax policy, but he was on the committee, and so he would have had an input into it. But I don't think he was one of the drafters of that one.
Why wouldn't you account for inflation around capital gains tax in the proposed?
We've kept it very, very simple, and we followed the recommendations of the tax working group on that. And that way, it keeps it simple, keeps it easy to understand, and all the details been set out.
Does the Party Māori need to come together following that hui with Ngāpuhi at the weekend?
What Te Party Māori does from this point onwards is completely up to them. Our goal at the next election is to win all of the Māori seats back for Labour.
You've been in politics a very long time. Have you seen anything like this in terms of the dynamics around Te Party Māori?
Not really. I mean, I've seen political parties have their internal disagreements, but this is next level. It's unclear actually whether... Sorry, I might just start that again. I just got a croak in my voice there. It's unclear whether there is even a Māori party left, or whether there are multiple different factions now all doing their own thing.
What about iwi involvement in politics in this kind of way? What do you make of that?
I think one of the messages here is that identity alone is not enough. If you want to be in politics, you have to stand for something. You have to have a coherent philosophy around how you govern. You have to have a coherent set of views on the economy, on the role of government, and we haven't seen that from Te Party Māori.
So you don't even know if Te Party Māori is one party or two parties or however many parties, but you've still left the door open to work with them in government?
Now, all I have said, Lloyd, is that we're not making decisions around ruling people in or out until closer to the election. That applies to all of the parties in Parliament.
What about the Opportunity Party? Is the door open to them?
We'll consider that closer to the election. At the moment, I think they're polling at about less than 1%, so not really a consideration.
But like Te Party Māori, they're in two different camps, maybe three different camps, but you're still open to working with them.
Well, I haven't ruled anybody out. I'm saying that we'll make those decisions closer to the election.
Do you agree with Winston Peters that the Regulatory Standards Act is undemocratic?
Yes, I am, and I welcome Winston Peters' sudden change of heart. It's a shame he didn't have that view less than 7 days ago when he voted it into law.
Do you think Winston's criticisms of the Act were ill-disciplined?
I think it's staggering that Winston Peters voted for this law change less than 2 weeks ago and is now condemning it and criticising it. If he had felt that way all along, as he claims, why didn't he vote against it?
Just the last thing, what do you make of the rumour mill that Luxon's under threat?
Christopher Luxon has failed to deliver on his promises to New Zealand. He promised to fix the economy, he's made it worse. He promised to get New Zealanders back to work, he's put more people out of work. Promised to fix the cost of living, it's got worse. Their headline commitment, $250 a week for a fortnight for the average Kiwi family with kids, not one single family has received that. I'm not surprised that there's talk about whether he should continue in the job because he's failed to live up to the expectations he himself created.
Do you think he'll be there come election time next year?
That's really a question for the National Party.
Is it because of his policies and what his government's done, or is it because of his personal appeal, do you think?
Those are really all questions for the National Party.
If you don't put up the super age, how can New Zealanders afford it?
Well, we'll set out our own policies around superannuation, around KiwiSaver and so on in the new year. But we have been very clear we won't support raising the age of eligibility for New Zealand superannuation.
Do you think we need better tax incentives like Australia?
Well, we should always have a look at what the Aussies are doing that works. And one of the things that they did do around their retirement savings was increase it progressively from the 1980s to today. We've got a bit of catching up to do in that space.
You're in Auckland. Have you seen many homeless people while you've been here?
Regularly do. I haven't actually on this trip. I only got in last night and came literally straight over here this morning. But when I'm walking around Auckland, I do regularly see people sitting on the streets. But I can't, in the last 24 hours, I have literally moved from the hotel to here. So
generally you agree there are too many homeless people in Auckland?
Yeah, and we need to find them a secure, stable accommodation and an opportunity for the future.
The government is considering a ban on homeless people in Auckland. What do you make of that?
Banning homeless people without giving them somewhere to go is not going to solve the problem. It's going to relocate them potentially out into the suburbs where they'll be outside people's houses instead of outside people's businesses. It doesn't solve the problem. What we've got to do is provide them, first of all, with a roof over their head, and then with the intensive support they need to turn their lives around so that they can actually be productive members of our community.
So there's no easy fix. So when you go into government, what will you do?
We'll focus on, fixing the underlying problems here. People who are homeless on the street often have complex needs, so we need to focus on addressing those complex needs rather than just taking a blunt approach of just booting them out of the CBD.
Can you tell us a little bit about the meeting you were in just before?
Yeah, so we're meeting with the Shandong province, which is keen to further its trading relationship with New Zealand. The New Zealand-China economic relationship is incredibly important to our country, our biggest international trading partner, and so the opportunity to trade with, to further those relationships with individual provinces within China is also really, really important. So Richard Taylor hosted us here at they're pretty spectacular meeting rooms, if I do say so. And it was a really constructive conversation. We heard about businesses from Shandong who are doing business here in New Zealand and New Zealand businesses who are doing business in Shandong.
Do you have any frustrations from New Zealand businesses around anything to do with the relationship or where things are operating between two countries?
It wasn't that kind of meeting. Ultimately it was a relationship building meeting, partly showcasing, I think, the success of the relationship that we already have. I think the New Zealand-China relationship is one that always needs to be important for us. We always need to keep working on it. It is in our economic best interests. But also China can be a friend to New Zealand in a range of areas, and we should always be open to continuing that dialogue.
Just coming back to Craig Rennie, would you consider splitting the finance and economy portfolio that Barbara Edmonds has into a finance portfolio and an economy portfolio?
I'm 100% behind Barbara Edmonds. I welcome Craig Rennie as a candidate, but like all new candidates, he's got to focus on getting himself elected.
But if he gets elected, he's good and he's got the smarts. Surely you're thinking about portfolios for him now.
There are going to be a range of very, very strong candidates that we're going to be announcing over the next few weeks and months, some of which are going to surprise people. And I'm very excited to have them on board. It shows the level of interest there is in the Labour Party. It shows a great degree of confidence that we're going to win the next election. A lot of people want to play a role in that. But I'm 100% behind the spokespeople that I have right now.
Are any of them former All Blacks?
I'm not going to get into speculating on anybody until we make announcements.
Is Conrad Smith standing for Labour?
I'm not going through any names until people have been selected, and then we announce them at the time.
Have you looked in Māori seat candidates?
We're going through a selection process for them at the moment. And I'm again very, very encouraged by the strong interest that we're seeing from those seats. But my policy is not to comment on individual candidates or seats until there's been a selection.
The kororo's been that Labour's lacked a bit of cool factor in the Māori seats. Are you going to fix that problem?
I think I'm pretty cool.
You standing in one?
You shouldn't laugh that much. You're supposed to be neutral. In all seriousness, we're going to be putting up a vigorous fight in the Māori electorates. We want to win all of those seats back.
Just generally about candidates, are there some deadwood candidates in Labour that you would like to move on to bring in some fresh faces?
Absolutely not. The nature of politics is from time to time people will decide that it's time for them to go, and we've seen quite a lot of that over the last 2 years. With people moving on, and all of them have made those decisions of their own volition. Many of them I would have loved them to stay and continue to contribute, but it's the nature of politics. None of us are here forever.
What about Greg O'Connor? Whereabouts is he going to stand?
I had a conversation with Greg this morning. We'll have a further conversation. He's still a very valued member of his team. He's weighing up his options at the moment. Aisha Verrill has been selected as our candidate for Wellington North. I have 100% backing for her. But we'll talk to Greg about where he might fit into the future. He's still a very, very important member of our team.
Because there's no Wellington-based electorates kind of left for him, right?
Look.
Kitty Puru's going to...
We'll have conversations with Greg and figure out where we go from here. Obviously, he's only found out the result of the Wellington North selection yesterday. I spoke to him on the phone earlier today. As he put it to me, he had one plan A. Now that hasn't worked out, so now he's got to come up with another plan A.
What does he bring to Parliament, though? Because he was even a police minister, even though he could have been, given his experience.
I don't think it's fair on anyone to have those conversations. Greg has been a very valuable member of our team. He's contributed as Deputy Speaker, currently as Assistant Speaker in the House. He brings a different perspective. He won the Ohario seat against Nicola Willis, who was odds-on favourite to win it. Very strongly supported by his local constituents. Obviously, his seat got disestablished. That's a fairly unique situation to find yourself in. But we'll talk to Greg about where he might fit into the future.
Just on superannuation KiwiSaver, so one of the other issues with the KiwiSaver scheme is the fact that people can withdraw money for their first home, and that's seen as making the fund unpredictable, reduces the amount of savings at the end. Are you looking at that idea at all and tinkering with it, or perhaps removing it?
We'll continue to allow people to withdraw their first home deposit from their KiwiSaver. Expanding it further is something that we're not supportive of. So any suggestions, National have in the past, floated the idea publicly about people being able to withdraw from KiwiSaver to set up businesses, for example. We're opposed to that because that's not what KiwiSaver is there for. When you're withdrawing it to put money into your first home, into your family home, for many people, their family home is part of their retirement savings picture.
But KiwiSaver was created with the idea that not all your savings will be in your family home, so you withdraw it.
And it was a national government decision to allow people to withdraw the money for their, first home deposit. We're not intending to change that.
Could you work with Winston Peters again in government?
As I've said, Lloyd, I'm going to set that out closer to the election. But I'm not doing the rule in, rule out, or will we work with this person, or will we rule with that person?
No.
And I will in this election too, but just closer to the election.
Okay, so the door is ajar for Winston?
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying I'm going to set all of that out closer to the election.
Okay, because last week Seymour said that he was sidling up to Labour with his view on the regulatory standards bill.
Well, he just voted in favour of the regulatory standards bill. So it's a reminder that if you vote for Winston Peters, you never know from one day to the next what you might be voting for.
Okay, so that's kind of a no? Could you actually work with Winston Peters though?
Look, as I have said, I'll set all of that out closer to the election. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.